Hello, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of our Monday Night Wars What If series in TW 2020, where we take WCW in 1995 without Hogan and all of his buddies never showing up, a much weaker WCW, and we try to see if we can recreate Monday Night Wars from this much lower standpoint, essentially. It is the Nitro happening the night after Halloween Havoc, and it is going to be an interesting one. Halloween Havoc played out in very interesting ways. Only one spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't watched it. If you haven't watched it, go back and watch it because you don't want to necessarily be spoiled and miss out on that great show. But for those who have watched it, you will have known, of course, that only one title changed hands on that night, that being the WCW World Tag Team titles, as we have new champions in the Blue Bloods. But the World title was retained, the US title was retained, TV title was retained. We'll have to see what that means heading into World War III. Now, brief explanation thing about World War III. So, World War III in real life was had a 60-man battle royal with the winner getting a shot at the world title at some point in the future. They always try to do Super Brawl, but then there'd be random times where they didn't do it Super Brawl. Anyway, I am not a fan of the 60-man battle royal feature, especially in TEW. But just in general, it was a convoluted mess. If you ever go back and watch those, it was just a mess to try to keep up with. It was a mess to try to figure out what was going on. All of that stuff. It was just too much. It was just too crazy, essentially. So I have come up with a different idea for World War III, and what that idea is, I'm not going to reveal right now. It's going to be revealed next week on Nitro by of course our president / commissioner / whatever his title is, the authority figure himself, Roddy Piper. It's not going to be on this Nitro because this is a little bit more of a fallout show from the pay-per-view and all that stuff, but we will reveal what the new plan is for World War III next week on Nitro. But before we get to figuring out more about World War III, we of course have to get to tonight's show and figure out what's all happening on it. We open up Monday Nitro here tonight with a match featuring the Taskmaster going over Joey Maggs in 5:43 by pinfall at the Tree of Woe. 68 rating for the match, 69 rating from Taskmaster, nice. 34 from Joey Maggs. Advance the Man Set on Destruction storyline that's been going on because the commentators were talking about what happened at Halloween Havoc. Of course, if you missed that, Giant made his in-ring debut in WCW and defeated Cactus Jack. So we shall have to see what that means heading forward, but the commentators were talking about it the whole time. And Taskmaster gets a bit of a squash victory here on Nitro. After the match, there is a little bit of a post-match interview where he is talking about Cactus Jack and about how at Halloween Havoc, the Giant did exactly what Taskmaster had been saying for weeks, that he was going to make him pay. He was going to have Cactus Jack be the first man set to be destroyed by this monster that he is unleashing upon the world of professional wrestling. But he's heard through the grapevine, as you will, that that Cactus Jack doesn't seem to want to accept that he was defeated. He's not making excuses for it, but he doesn't want to seem to leave this whole situation alone. And so if Taskmaster says that if Cactus Jack wants to come after him, he's not worried about it. He's not afraid of him because he has a Giant in his corner. What can Cactus Jack even do? So kind of says that, this is a dawning of a new era in WCW, and that this man set on destruction, known as the Giant Orber, is going to be running Havoc, running roughshod through WCW. And if Cactus wants to take another beating for it, then so be it. So, kind of a interesting thing, but a 61 rating for that segment, and we move on from there. After that, we get Gene Okerlund catching the Blue Bloods again, and Blue Bloods are asked once again, Regal is asked once again about the Harlem Heat rematch that he asked Regal about last night at Halloween Havoc and got blown off for, and tonight he again gets ignored. The Blue Bloods just kind of ignore him. It turns out that the Blue Bloods are coming down to the ring. They're not having a match up next, but they're coming down to the ring because they're going to be at ringside for this the next contest. But yeah, Okerlund still can't get an answer out of whether there will be a rematch for the tag team titles again or not. We'll have to see what happens in the future with that. The contest that the Blue Bloods are coming down for to watch is the Steiner Brothers getting a quick little 4-minute victory over the Barrio Brothers when Scott pins Fidel Sierra with a Steiner screwdriver in 410. 57 rated matchup. Not strong, but it is what it is. It's essentially a Steiner squash. That's what it is. Steiner's still kind of wanting a shot at the WCW World Tag Team titles, but we'll have to see what happens with that. We'll have to see. Essentially, at the end of the day, and I can kind of, this is something that the commentators would bring up anyway. The Steiner Brothers want a shot at the World Tag Team titles here at WCW, but they've been stretched thin recently because there is the working agreement with ECW is still happening, and the Steiner Brothers are working in ECW right now as well as WCW, and they're also still going off and doing things over in New Japan. They're kind of working in New Japan at times too, so they aren't around here at WCW that much, and it's kind of hard to get a title shot if you're not going to be around that much. But Steiner Brothers still want to try to earn that shot, and we'll have to see what that means heading forward. After that, we get a Roddy Piper promo where he kind of is talking about some of the various things from Halloween Havoc that I've already kind of mentioned. Certain matches, how he enjoyed certain matches and all that stuff. And Randy Savage comes out. Piper's out on the kind of stage, kind of right by the ramp over, cutting this promo. And Randy Savage comes out, just kind of immediately, just not even trying to wait his turn over, just gets in, almost not quite gets in Piper's face, but gets in front of Piper, making Piper have to notice that he's there, and says that Piper saw what happened at Halloween Havoc, that it was because, if it wasn't for the outside interference of the Four Horsemen, that Savage would have won the WCW World Heavyweight Championship, and that if he had lost cleanly, he would have no problem accepting the loss, but it's going to eat at him if his title match, the big revenge title match for him, was marred in controversy of having to deal with outside interference and all that. And so he's asking for a rematch for the WCW World title at World War III. Piper says that Savage does make a good point. He makes some good arguments there, and that he will consider it. He will let Savage know next week whether he gets this shot or not. So we'll have to see what happens with that. 93 rating for that segment. Good stuff. After that, we move on to a matchup featuring Chris Benoit defeating Mr. JL in 632 by pinfall to Dragon Suplex. 66 rated match that is here. A little bit of a back and forth contest. A little bit more of a back and forth contest than the first two matches were. At one point, Dean Malenko decided to come out onto the stage and was kind of watching. Of course, Dean Malenko got the victory at Havoc against Chris Benoit. And so he's out there kind of watching him for a little bit there, as if the issues between the two men are not over yet. But Benoit gets a victory here. Pretty decent victory here. 68 from Benoit, 43 from JL. And we move on from there. After that, we get the Horsemen. Malenko walks off backstage after Benoit gets the win. And as Benoit's coming up the ramp, that's when the rest of the Horsemen come out from the back. And Okerlund shows up, and they have a promo. The Horsemen have a promo about Havoc. Flair is celebrating, profiling and styling and profiling and all that stuff, and he's still the WCW World Heavyweight Champion and all that. And when Okerlund tries to ask him about Randy Savage's claims that that Flair cheated to win essentially and all that, Ric Flair just looks at Okerlund and says, "Who the hell do you think I am? They don't call me the dirtiest player in the game for nothing." Essentially, so and the crowd kind of pops just because of the humor of that. But Flair says that that Savage doesn't deserve another shot because he was beaten cleanly in the ring, even though it wasn't technically cleanly, but he was beaten cleanly in the ring. But he is a fighting champion. He's the greatest world heavyweight champion in WCW history, and if Piper makes the bad decision to put Savage up against Flair yet again, then he will beat him yet again because he is the Nature Boy Ric Flair. And he says that it's not a big deal that Pillman and Benoit lost to Havoc because the Horsemen will continue to, because the Horsemen are still holding the world title, and they're still going to continue to dominate in WCW no matter what anybody says about it. And then Horsemen walk off as that gets a 77. Pretty good stuff there. And apparently Arn spoke at some point. I didn't think I rated Arn on a speaking role, but apparently Arn spoke at some point. Maybe he was just talking about how Savage is making excuses, but at the end of the day, Flair's still the champion. I don't know. And then after that, in a pretty interesting main event featuring two people who lost at Halloween Havoc, Sting, who lost the tag team matchup to Vader and Bam Bam Bigelow, and Big Bubba Rogers, who lost to Rikishi Fatu in a roll-up fashion. Battle between those two men. Sting defeats Big Bubba Rogers in 7:52 by submission with a Scorpion Deathlock, 77 rating for the match, 80 from Sting, 60 from Rogers. Advancing storylines left and right, it seems like. Rikishi Fatu came down to ringside because it looked like Big Bubba Rogers was going to kind of cheat at one point, and Rikishi Fatu came out to stop him. Rogers was upset about that, and then Vader ended up coming out onto the stage and just kind of stood there, watched everything else happening. But essentially, Sting gets a clean victory over Big Bubba Rogers in the main event of Nitro here tonight. And then after the match, Sting has a promo about Vader, who's still up there on the stage, just staring him down. And Sting says that that Vader may have won the tag team matchup at Halloween Havoc, but Sting was not the one defeated. Sting was not the one who was defeated there. And that if Vader wants to claim that he deserves to be the number one contender for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship, then all he has to do is beat Sting. So he's issuing a challenge at World War III. He's issuing a challenge for it to be Sting versus Vader one-on-one at World War III. And we will have to see what happens with that. That's like a 72. And we end the show itself on a 78. Increasing popularity in 21 regions. Limited viewers in Canada, Mexico, and Japan. We've been having that for weeks now with Nitro. I don't have the viewership in those areas that would be better for it. A couple pre-show matches, as you see. This week I didn't have anything important happen, or kind of that I was doing in the pre-show that I wanted to keep from you guys. So Canyon defeats Terry Richards to a 32 rating, and then Bunkhouse Buck and Scott Norton defeats the Renegade and Scotty Riggs. There's nothing there. It was just 4 random people put together in a tag match. So yeah, pretty decent show here. 78 rating overall, which is good, obviously. Increasing popularity and all that stuff. And there you go. Yeah. Obviously, as you saw with this week, I'm going to kind of. I feel like the first couple months of the series, not that there were bad shows at all, but I was jumping too far up on the current day wrestling, where you would have, main eventer versus main eventer in the main event, and you'd have all the upper mid carders fighting each other, and you had all the big stars going up against each other all the time. Whereas back in this era, especially in WCW, it was a lot of, especially in WCW on Nitro, that is, it was a lot of Hogan would fight random guy who had no chance in beating him, and Flair would fight random person who had no chance in beating him, and stuff like that. So I feel like that's where I'm going to start kind of going a little bit direction-wise in this. As you saw there, however, there'll still be some matches that might be a little bit more competitive, like the Sting and Rogers match. I mean, obviously, it was probably pretty obvious who was going to win that match, but there still might be occasionally a match or two that'll be, like a show that'll be kind of more of a competitive one, but most of the time it's going to be a lot more other stuff. We're going to be building up Nitro with a lot more promos, especially because the way that sorry, I got distracted with something. The way that the Nitro, or the way that our product is set up, is what I was trying to say. We can only do 40% matches on Nitro, so I can't continue doing this method of having, Sting and Steve Austin versus Pillman and Vader on a consistent basis, because it's eventually especially because matches like that deserve a lot more time, and then I have like maybe 1 or 2 matches on Nitro. So you're probably going to see a lot more weeks. I'm not saying every single week, but you're probably going to see a lot more weeks where it'll be like this, where it'll be, we had 4 different matches on the show. 3 of them were essentially squashes. The main event was somewhat of a squash. And a lot more focus on the promos, a lot more focus on the angles going on. Saturday night is going to go to an hour and a half now, just because I'm going to have a lot more focus on kind of getting over some of these people who, especially some of the people who will be taking losses on Nitro, essentially is what's going to happen. So you won't be seeing too much of Saturday night, or at least I might go over a couple things on there, but you probably won't be seeing the consistent build of Saturday night every week, because there won't be anything worth noting. You'll have, Scott Norton defeats so-and-so, and then maybe in a couple weeks on Nitro, he takes a loss to somebody or something. It's going to be based around, like, building up people. Like, Saturday night will essentially become, a true B show, essentially. So, but yeah, enough rambling. Unfortunately, we did not hit the boost from small to medium. I don't know why. Maybe we will hit it by the time World War III comes around. I don't know. Or maybe it'll take World War III to make that boost. I don't know. But yeah, that is going to do it from me today. Thank you for watching. Definitely appreciate all the support for the series. And go ahead and tune in next week when we will find out about what the actual gimmick to World War III is going to be. We'll see if Vader accepts the challenge that Sting laid out, and we'll see if we have a rematch for the world title between Randy Savage and Ric Flair. We'll have to see. But thank you for watching. Appreciate it. See you, Daredevil, signing off once again.